This is a pretty iconic plant within the PvZ universe, and even my favorite character to play as in Garden Warfare 2. But today we're looking at PvZ2, where it's been turned into this versatile machine that can hit everything and is extremely difficult to destroy as it turns into a spikeweed when threatened. So today I maxed it out and wanted to see if this versatility was good enough to beat the entirety of PvZ2 by itself. But before we begin, let me tell you the rules. Only Cactus, no power-ups or Zen Garden, skip all levels that force the use of another plant, replaced plants are fine, and lastly, coins earned throughout the challenge can be used to buy plant food, but no replaying levels to farm coins. Okay, that's enough rules. Let's begin. We start in the earlier days of ancient Egypt where we kind of just rolled through all the zombies, so while they play in the background, I'm going to quickly go over the stats of the max level Cactus. Its stun cost goes from 175 at level 1 to 100 at max level. Its recharge goes from 5 seconds to 2.5 seconds. Its health goes from 300 to 900. Its projectile velocity, so how fast its bullets fly through the air, are multiplied by 2.2. But now let's get to all the different damage modifiers that it has. Its normal damage goes from 30 to 120. Its damage when it turns into a spikeweed goes from 10 to 40. There's also the extra damage that Cactus does to flying enemies, and that goes from 45 to 180. Oh, and if you look at these cactuses to the left, you'll notice that the very middle one is plant fooded, and the way that the cactus's plant food works is that once you use it, it stays plant fooded until it's destroyed. And in this plant fooded state, it basically does double damage and can pierce through 2 extra enemies. And on the topic of piercing, the normal cactus can pierce through 2 to 4 enemies every shot, and the plant-footed one, like I just mentioned, pierces through 2 extra. And then lastly, of course, we have the mastery bonuses, one of which when you plant down the cactus, there's about a 20% chance that it plant foods itself, which is pretty overpowered combined with the cactus's plant food. And then lastly, the mastery bonus also gives a damage pierce, which is basically just a damage bonus, and it's a 200% bonus. And that's everything for the stats of the cactus. So let's get back to the normal gameplay. You probably noticed that it isn't really struggling with the zombies at all. Even the explorers can't get anywhere near it, making levels with them pretty easy as well. So let's fast forward to day 18, which is the first level that we prep defenses in. And you're going to notice that I only used about a column of cactuses in most of the levels, and that's because that's all that's really needed. But there will be some worlds like Frostbite Caves where we have to start trying a little more. But for now, days 19, 20, 21, 22, and even 23 with this Gargantuar were all very easily defeated. And we'd now made it to day 24, which is the last level that we play of Ancient Egypt. And like usual, all the zombies were completely destroyed before they even made it past like the first 5 tiles. And we'd now beaten all of Ancient Egypt using just a max level cactus. So let's see how it does in the Pirate Seas. Though we have things like the barrel roller and the fact that sometimes the lanes are just missing, it's still an extremely easy world. So days 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, and lastly 11 were all easily defeated. Day 14, we take a little stop to prepare defenses. Again, annihilating all the zombies. Day 16 was a special level in which we had to defend these 2 spring bean, and usually the problem here is the barrel rollers, but since the piercing of the cactus can just hit the zombie rolling the barrel, they aren't very much of a problem. We also stop on day 22 to prepare defenses. And this is a lot less satisfying than normal because the imp cannons can't even get a shot off before they're destroyed. But that leads us to day 24 of Pirate Seas, which is the last level that we play of Pirate Seas. And normally the annoying zombies on this level are the flying ones, but since the cactus deals bonus damage to them, they aren't much of a threat. And just like that, we'd beaten all of Pirate Seas using just a max level cactus. So let's see how it deals with the chickens introduced in. And I mentioned specifically the chickens in the Wild West because everything else, like we've already seen, is extremely easy to defeat. So skipping straight to day 10, we first encounter the chickens in the very top lane, which was actually a little bit of a problem because one of them made it all the way to the lawnmower. But that's mainly because we didn't have a cactus in that lane, and as soon as we got a cactus in every single lane, it made it impossible for the chickens to get past them since they turn into spikeweeds when the chickens get close and then inevitably destroy them. So even the chickens don't end up being a match. Day 14 has even more chickens, but once again, when I got the cactus in every single lane, they become a non-threat. I'm just going to jump straight to day 23, which is normally a pretty annoying level since there's flowers that we can't let be trampled on and there's chicken set in this level. But I did a little bit of stalling at the beginning, only defeating the zombie when it got close to the flowers so I could get down all of my cactuses before the chickens came in. And this worked out perfectly because as soon as the chickens started coming in, we had all our cactuses down and they were all plant fooded, simplifying this level an enormous amount. And here we were, day 24 of Wild West, which is the last level we play of the Wild West, and normally Understandably, it's difficult for some plants, but Cactus of course doesn't struggle, meaning we'd beaten all of the Wild West using just a max level Cactus. So let's see how it fares up against the snowstorms and I would say that the Frostbite Caves is probably the most annoying world that we had to play for this challenge, and that's mainly due to the snowstorms that sweep through, freezing your plants after 2 winds. Like you're seeing on the screen, there is a strategy to counteract this like I did with the laser beam, where you can just shovel your cactus, getting most of your sun back and then replanting it, which resets the layer of ice that's on it. But you just have to be careful that your cactus doesn't get fully frozen, because if that happens, you can't shovel them. And this strategy made day 2 very easy to beat. Day 4 actually didn't have any snowstorms, so it was like a normal level. Day 6 on the other hand had a ton of snowstorms, and they actually overwhelmed me to the point where one of my cactuses got frozen before I could shovel it, and then a couple of seconds later a second one got frozen. But thankfully there were some redirection pads in the top and bottom lanes, meaning that I only had to defend the middle 3 lanes, so the amount of sun slash cactuses I needed for the level was very minimal, and the frozen cactuses didn't hinder us too much, and we beat day 6. Days 7 and 9 were pretty easy as well. Day 11 however is one of the more annoying levels just because of how many snowstorms it has, so I'm constantly having to shovel my cactuses, losing 25 sun each time. But again, the cactus doesn't cost too much and it recharges extremely quickly, so as long as I pay attention and don't let the zombies get too far, levels like this end up being pretty easy as well. Day 12 was a prepare your defenses level. And these are usually pretty annoying because you prepare your defenses and then inevitably the game sends in snowstorms that instantly freeze your plants. So you're usually forced to plant a second column of cactus as well. But the positive, of course, is that the game gives you a ton of sun to work with. So the prepare your defenses levels end up being pretty easy as well. Day 13 is pretty cool because we have to protect these flowers in the very back from being trampled on, and we only have to worry about the 3 middle lanes because of the redirection pads in the top and bottom lane. And this is honestly pretty easy to do up until the final wave where the game tries to pull a fast one on you, sending a Gargantuar in the bottom lane, which also forces you to plant plants there so the imps don't make it all the way. But again, the cactus is overpowered and day 13 was beaten. Day 15 is actually pretty easy because we have to protect these 2 pepper poles, and in return they're able to melt the ice off the cactuses. The only lane we have to worry about is the middle lane, but when one gets frozen you just plant another cactus behind it, and using the strategy day 15 was defeated. Day 17 has some frozen plants which are actually pretty helpful because once they get unfrozen you can just shovel them and collect the sun from them, planting more cactuses. And with that, day 17 was beaten. Day 19 is also pretty annoying because it has a pretty decent amount of snowstorms, so I'm constantly having to shovel my cactuses, even missing some in the process, but we made it work. Day 20, I'm not gonna lie, I was so focused on the top 4 lanes that I completely forgot to get rid of the ice pusher in the bottom lanes, so they kind of just covered the whole thing up with the imps. But thankfully we made it to the final wave and the lawnmower was able to take out all the zombies in that lane, and the imps all just end up dying when the level ends. Day 22 introduces the weasel zombies, which are kind of like the chickens from the Wild West, and again they're pretty easy to defeat. Day 23 we have to protect these 5 charred guards and also are given 3 frozen twin sunflowers, who one we get sun for shoveling, but as soon as you break their ice they actually produce 100 sun each. And even better, this level doesn't have any snowstorms, so even though it sends in weasels to be annoying against the charred guards, the cactuses dealt with them pretty easily. Day 26 is a pretty technical level because it has some snowstorms and also these weasel hoarders that are frozen in the back, so I can't just plant the cactuses anywhere I want, and I have to destroy the zombies and then also shovel my cactuses so that I don't destroy the weasel hoarders that are frozen. And after some constant shoveling and replanting of the cactuses, I was finally able to make it to the final wave where I had a cactus in every lane and they were able to take down all the zombies. Day 27 sometimes can be annoying if your plant isn't powerful enough because it sends in a ton of tanky zombies, but thankfully there aren't any snowstorms. So this actually ends up being a pretty easy level for the cactus, especially when they're all plant fooded and all the way in the back, completely eviscerating the Gargantuars. Meaning we made it to day 28 where there's a bunch of snowstorms and weasels that can be annoying, but I just have to make sure that I'm planting a cactus behind the cactuses that get frozen, because if I don't, this will happen like in the top and bottom lane where the weasels just run over them and get to the lawnmowers. But as we made it to the final wave, it was getting pretty obvious that we're going to beat this level, meaning that we had beaten all of Frostbite Caves using just a max level cactus. And honestly, it was only going to get easier in I'm going to be super speeding through the Lost City and the Far Future because they're probably the easiest levels in this entire challenge, especially Lost City because we had the gold tiles to work with, and normally the annoying zombies in this world are the shovel zombies or even the flying dragonflies, and the cactus is actually able to pierce through the shovel of the shovel zombies, so it isn't much of a problem, and it deals extra damage to the flyers, so they aren't a problem either. And of course there's also the umbrella, but that doesn't do anything against the cactus as it's only for the lobbers. The Far Future, even though it doesn't have gold tiles, it still has the power tiles, meaning that nearly in every level we have a full column of super powered cactuses, and there truly isn't anything in the Far Future that's going to stop them. The only thing that could maybe have a chance is a Robo Gargantuar, but even that guy gets destroyed instantly, and just like that we'd be in all of the Lost City and Far Future using just a max level cactus. So let's see how it fares up against one of the most dreaded worlds, which is the Dark Ages. We of course have the support of the Gold Bloom, because otherwise 95% of the plants in this game couldn't make it past this world. But getting into the real problem, on night 5 we run into the Jesters who are able to repel the shots of the cactus, but there is a way to defeat these guys, which is basically just planting the cactus underneath them and using the spikeweed effect of the cactus to defeat them. And this is why the versatility of the cactus is so good, because it's able to hit every single zombie in the entire game. It doesn't really have any weaknesses as long as you're using it correctly. Even the super buff knights aren't a big threat because the cactus has insane damage at the same time. The only problem I actually ran into was on night 12 where one of my cactus's shots was getting pierced back at my cactus and the puff shroom, which took out the puff shroom that we're supposed to protect. So I'd actually lost for the first time in this challenge, but that was mainly because I wasn't paying too much attention, and if I just shoveled and then replaced my cactus in the correct position, this level actually ends up being pretty easy like shown on the second attempt. And we can just jump straight to night 19, which is the last level of the Dark Ages, where we have to protect these 3 magnet shrooms. And similarly to what we did with the puff shroom, I want to make sure that I have my cactus in the right position because jesters are sent in front of the magnet shroom. But if you look at this magnet shroom in the top lane, you'll see that a jester repelled a cactus shot, but for some reason the cactus shots don't hit the magnet shrooms. So the strategy actually wasn't really even needed, and we'd beaten this level pretty easily with the cactuses, meaning that we'd beaten all of Dark Ages using just a max level cactus, with the next worlds being the Neon Mixtape Tour and the Jurassic Marsh. We're going to be super speeding through as well because the gimmicks in these worlds make the zombies much stronger, but unlike the Frostbite Caves, they don't hinder the cactus, meaning that even though the zombies might be super strong or super speedy, they're basically still the same thing in front of a max level cactus. Normally we run into a problem with the microphone whippers, but those guys can't even get close, and sometimes arcade machine zombies are a problem as well, but the cactus can just pierce through the arcade machine and defeat the zombie pushing him. The only actual problem at times was the Gargantuar, who can one-shot the cactus, but most of the time we're able to defeat them quick enough that they don't do much. And the same thing goes for the Jurassic Marsh. The only semi-problem was the T-Rex towards the end or the Ankylosaurus, because sometimes they can make it to where we don't have enough sun and not enough cactuses placed before the zombies make it to the end. But since we usually have lawnmowers for the first layer of defense, they always give us enough time to get our sun and our cactuses down in all 5 lanes. And with that, we'd be in all of the Neon Mixtape Tour and the Jurassic Marsh using just a max level cactus. So let's see how it does in the Big Wave Beach. Is actually a pretty easy world as well, as all the zombies in the water are heavily slowed down, giving the cactus a lot of time to defeat them. The only thing about the cactus though is that you can't plant it on top of lily pads, and so there are a couple of levels that completely cover the map in water, and those ones I'm just going to completely skip over since I can't plant a cactus on there, and it feels a little unfair calling it a loss. Other than that, the levels are pretty easy. Even day 9, where we only have 1 tile in each lane to work with, the cactus doesn't struggle at all. Oh yeah, there's also the scuba zombies that you can't really hit until they come out of the water because there's no more water left, or they have to eat the lily pad. But once they do come out, they get one shot. The semi-challenge of the Big Wave Beach starts on day 23, where we first have to protect these 3 banana launchers, and as always it's mainly against the fisherman zombie. So at first I kind of just let the fisherman in the very top lane do its thing while I farm sun, so that I had enough sun to place my cactuses back to back to back behind the banana launchers. This was mainly done to secure the banana launchers' safety, and I even double protected them by plant fooding all the cactuses cactus behind them. And for the most part, this made it very easy as the plant-footed cactus can just two-shot the fishermen and doesn't let them hook on to the banana launchers. But then as we're about to reach the third big wave, a bunch of zombies in the bottom middle lane tanked a cactus shot for the fisherman behind them, so that fisherman was able to get a hook off on the banana launcher, pulling it one tile forward. And this was kind of a problem because if it got hooked one more time, it would have been in danger. So just in case, I planted a second cactus behind it and plant fooded it, and with that we had finally beaten day 23. Day 25 wasn't a difficult level, but I'm showing it because sometimes it can be a pain as you have to defeat 10 zombies in 5 seconds. But as you can see, the cactus was instantly able to do this, and day 25 was beaten, which leads us to the last level of the Big Wave Beach, which is day 30, and we have to protect these 5 crocodiles in the back once again from the fishermen. And on this level I have to be a lot more focused because if you look in the top lane, sometimes the fisherman can get a shot off on the cactus and pull it one tile forward, and I have to make sure that I plant a cactus right behind it right after so that we don't run into a problem, because if the fisherman's hook even touches the crocodile, we lose. But as the level went on, we were able to plant food a bunch of our cactus, and if they weren't plant fooded, I had 2 in that lane just in case. And with that, we had beaten all of the Big Wave Beach using just a max level cactus. So let's see how it does in Modern Day, in a way, is a combination of all the other worlds, and like you just saw, the cactus didn't struggle with any of the other worlds, so you can assume that Modern Day was pretty easy as well. But even though it was easy, there were a couple of annoying levels like day 7, where there were a bunch of octo zombies sent in, and a lot of my cactuses kept on getting covered. And even worse, there were some gestures that I had to spend extra sun to defeat. And I was able to beat most of the zombies using the cactus, but I did have to rely on the lawnmower for some of them. So eventually we did beat day 7. Day 15 was pretty cool because all of our cactuses erected out of the ground at the same time. Day 20, we had some gold tiles to work with, so I was able to spam a bunch of cactuses like I did in Lost City, allowing me to pretty easily win. Day 21, we're introduced to the all-star zombie, who actually is pretty annoying if your cactus isn't plant fooded, because it'll get to the lawnmower without fail. But if your cactus is plant fooded, it doesn't really stand a chance and dies about 4 tiles in. So at first I got a little scared, but day 21 ended up being pretty easy. But now we're jumping to day 30, which has been a run killer for a lot of plants because they just can't beat all the tanky zombies in this level, especially combined with the fact that we have to protect these flowers and that 4th tile from being trampled on. But like I've mentioned multiple times, cactus has that ability to turn into a spikeweed, and as I think most people know, if you have a spikeweed on top of the flowers, the zombies actually can't trample them and they kind of just walk over the plant, meaning that after we had a cactus on every single flower, all we had to worry about was just defeating the zombies before they got to the end. So when imps were launched by the gargantuars, I was forced to plant more cactuses in the back, and I even sacrificed some lawnmowers when I knew I was confirmed to win, and just like that, we'd beaten day 30, meaning we'd made it to day 31 of Modern Day, which is the last level of the entire challenge. And this one's pretty easy, especially compared to day 30, meaning we had beaten all of Plants vs. Zombies 2 using just a max level cactus, and it hadn't lost to any levels. And that's the end of the video. There isn't much more to say, so let me know in the comments who you want to see next. Oh, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe. Okay, bye bye.